From a spectacular rock formation 700 meters above the Ringedalsvatnet Lake in Norway to a roller coaster crossing speeds of 100 miles per hour in just 1 second. Brace yourself, as in today's video, I'm going to count down the most terrifying tourist attractions in the world. If you had any one of these attractions on your bucket list, you might want to reconsider after watching this video. Number 1. Trolltunga Cliff. While Trolltunga or Trolltung isn't exactly the most terrifying attraction out there, it's definitely one of the most dangerous. Chances are you've already seen it in pictures, since it gets more than 50,000 visitors annually, trying to get a view of the absolutely breathtaking scenic landscape. But believe it or not, that's actually not the reason why it's so famous. Getting a picture of yourself sitting or hanging off the edge of the cliff is what makes this spot so dangerous and popular among tourists. Now, as terrifying as the pictures may seem, most of them are often manipulated, but that still doesn't mean accidents don't occur. Back in 2015, a 24-year Australian woman ended up falling to her death after trying to navigate between daredevils standing on the cliff. It led to a huge outburst, since there were absolutely no safety guidelines for approaching the cliff. And that's not all. The 10 to 12-hour hike to the cliff is so dangerous and demanding that around 50 people need to be rescued annually due to injuries or getting lost in the fog. But yeah, apart from the terrifying cliff, it's definitely one of the most popular and beautiful views Norway has to offer. I would, however, recommend everyone to take things slow and not try to bud others on the cliff, because it could lead to a really nasty ending. Number 2. Elephant Kingdom. While the Elephant Kingdom in Chonburi, Thailand, is meant to be a place of peace for elephants rescued from a lifetime of misery, it's odd to see how it's the tourists who might just need rescuing. It's an absolutely beautiful sanctuary, but there's just one tricky thing about it: crocodiles. It's been labeled as one of the riskiest attractions in the entire country, as tourists are stuffed together on a flimsy wooden raft, floating on the water full of crocodiles. And what's even more terrifying is that the raft is kept afloat using old plastic containers that could easily sink any minute, leading to a gruesome accident. Thankfully, this attraction in the Elephant Kingdom has been shut down now, after some foreigners shared videos of people teasing crocodiles with sticks dangling with meat. As for the tourists, I have no idea how anyone would actually be interested in getting on that raft just inches away from 10-foot-long crocodiles. Number 3. Death Valley, USA. Sometimes I have no idea how these places end up becoming tourist attractions. I mean, why would someone want to go tour the hottest place on Earth? It's literally a furnace down there, with the highest temperature ever recorded in Death Valley reaching 134 degrees Fahrenheit. Believe it or not, this terrifying tourist attraction has taken the lives of many, and that too before they even get to the actual destination. People have been found parked cars, as the humidity and temperature don't allow any living thing to survive beyond 14 hours without water. But heat isn't your only worry if you're crazy enough to visit the hottest place on the planet. Death Valley is home to all sorts of dangerous animals like scorpions, rattlesnakes, and spiders that'll probably add to your misery if you're soaking in the sun in the desert. But what's bizarre about this valley is, despite the absurd temperatures and dangerous life-taking animals, it's actually car accidents that have claimed the most lives. I'm pretty sure temperature does play a major role in it though, since being out that long in the heat is bound to mess with your head. Number 4. Paris Catacombs, France. What's more terrifying than being underground? Being underground with the remains of 6 million souls. Believe it or not, this strangely popular tourist attraction was the solution to Paris's overflowing cemeteries back in the 18th century. And what's freakier is that most couples come to Paris on a romantic getaway, spending a lovely time in front of the Eiffel Tower, oblivious to the fact that the city is literally built on a cemetery. A lot of tourists report hearing all sorts of weird echoes and whispers while making their way to the underground tunnels. But that's not all. The Paris catacombs are terrifying in other ways as well. The unstable ceilings, hidden pits, and collapsed tunnels are also very dangerous. And while tours aren't allowed after dark, a lot of adventure seekers have broken in to navigate the catacombs at night. There's just one complication to that, though. Aside from a police ticket if you're caught, there's a possibility that you'll get caught forever, as getting lost in the labyrinth is a real thing. Back in 2005, some teens thought it would be wise to party in the catacombs, but after getting drunk, one girl got lost after she became separated from the group. She spent 3 long nights in the tunnels, trying to find her way back in the pitch black before dying of dehydration. Number 5. Insanity Ride, USA. The Insanity is a thrill ride that opened in Las Vegas, Nevada, back in 2005. It's perhaps one of the craziest and most terrifying tourist attractions in the world, as it's 900 feet above the ground on top of the Strat. Now, I do understand the thrill adrenaline seekers would get by taking a ride on the Insanity, but trust me, it isn't for everyone. It's literally a mechanical arm with seats attached to it that dangles thrill seekers 900 feet above the ground off the edge of a building. It tilts each seat about 70 degrees towards the ground so they can get a perfect view of what's underneath, and it doesn't end there. The ride then swings them at a speed of 40 miles per hour, making it one of the most terrifying experiences one could ever have. Thankfully, no incidents have ever been reported, but shortly after its opening, some tourists were left stranded in the air for about an hour and a half after the ride stopped working. It was built to shut off in case it detected any problem, and fast winds were one of them. So imagine if just watching this ride gave you sweaty palms and knots in your stomach, what would happen if you actually tried the Insanity? Number 6. Coiling Dragon Cliff Walk, China. While glass skywalks are definitely not something new, the Coiling Dragon Cliff Walk changes the game and gives terrifying tourist attractions a whole new meaning. It's a see-through skywalk that runs along the 1,500-meter-tall Tianmen Mountain, giving tourists spectacular and nerve-wracking views of what's below them. And while the skywalk is only 100 meters long, the fact that it latches onto the mountain at a height of 300 meters is what makes it so terrifying. Just imagine someone afraid of heights having to walk over the glass portion of the crossing. An absolute nightmare. And I know what some of you are thinking right now. How is this even terrifying when there are higher glass skywalks in the world? Well, there's a difference between walking along a mountain and on some glassway. I mean, just try to imagine it for a second. You have a mountain on your left, and below you and beside is nothing but a few inches of glass and a drop of thousands of feet. I don't know about you, but it also makes me wonder how tricky building something like that would have been. Workers would have probably been suspended by ropes while laying down the first piece of glass. Oh, and in case you didn't know, they've also added a special effect to some pieces of glass. Whenever weight is applied to the glass, it displays a shattering effect, tricking people into thinking the glass is actually cracking. Honestly, that's probably the meanest joke you could pull on someone, because it's probably led to a lot of people almost getting a heart attack. Number 7. Mount Huashan, China. If everything in this video so far has felt like a snooze, prepare to be blown away, because this is perhaps the most terrifying thing you could do in China. A glass skywalk seems like a piece of cake in front of this, because there's no glass or anything like that. Visitors hike alongside the mountain by attaching harnesses on a chain that is strung throughout the path. Now here's why Mount Huashan is a major nope. I mean, of course, China is famous for building all sorts of incredible things. And if you can trust a glass skywalk 1,000 feet above the ground, you could trust a chain strung alongside the mountain, right? Well, what you can't trust is the wooden ledge you're walking on, because it's hardly 2 feet across in some portions of the climb. And while the harness protects you from falling off a literal cliff of a mountain, you can expect a lot of scares along the way, especially in rainy weather when the ledge is wet and you're constantly slipping and putting all your faith in that harness and chain. Once you start reaching the top, it becomes very scary since you have to wait for people ahead of you, and sometimes not everyone can muster the courage to continue through. There have been a lot of incidents of some visitors staying in the same spot for hours because of a complete body shutdown. Now, these figures aren't confirmed, but it's said that nearly 100 people plummet to death annually while trying to make it to the Huashan tea house. I don't know, but all that effort and trauma for a tea house around 7,000 feet above the ground? I don't know if I'd do it. Would you? Number 8. Aokigahara Forest, Japan. Again, why this destination is so popular among tourists and hikers, I have no idea. If it's not it's easily the most terrifying forest in the entire world. The Aokigahara Forest, located in Japan, isn't famous because of its views or wildlife. The forest actually has a dark secret. Also known as the suicide forest, Aokigahara is the world's second most common site for suicides after the Golden Gate Bridge. In just 2010 alone, 247 people attempted to take their lives in the forest, and after the locals started sharing tales of how there might be demons or supernatural powers present, it became super popular among tourists and locals. Believe it or not, a lot of visitors will often take along tape or rope and leave a trail at the start of the forest just so they can make it back, since the forest becomes extremely dense beyond a certain point. The trees are closely packed together, it's extremely easy to lose direction and not hear anything around you either. Why do people come here? I have no clue. Is it one of the most terrifying places on the planet? Definitely. But still, despite all the negative stigma, tourists still say it's one of the most beautiful places they've ever seen in their lives. Number 9. Cerro Negro, Nicaragua. What would be more fun than climbing up Nicaragua's active Cerro Negro volcano, sitting on a piece of plywood and sliding down the slopes? Of course, there's always going to be a risk of you potentially burning or maybe even drowning in lava, but apart from that, it should be pretty fun, right? Oh, before I forget, there's also the risk of inhaling toxins and dying of suffocation, and considering the theme of this video, I don't even have to question why this is a tourist destination. Now, the place and experience itself is definitely something out of this world, but the risks associated with actually going through with it are a bit too much, I feel. There's a pretty famous company by the name of Bigfoot Hostel that arranges the entire trip for you, and here's the funny bit. For just $29, you get a piece of plywood and some goggles to slide down the slope, and they also use a speed gun to see how fast you come down. Did I mention that it's actually an active volcano that has erupted about 20 times since 1850? Number 10. World's tallest swing, China. This attraction is not for the faint-hearted, and if you have vertigo, it's best to steer clear of this one because the tallest swing in the world will launch thrill-seekers at speeds of 130 km/h off the edge of a cliff. It only opened up a couple of years back in Chongqing, China, and was instantly a hit. Along with terrifying visitors because of the insanely dangerous views, it's also been certified by the Guinness World Records for being the tallest swing in the world. Just the launching tower alone stands tall at about 108 meters, with the arch at around 100 meters. Add that to the 700 feet tall cliff the swing is constructed on, and you're about 800 feet above the ground, swinging in the air with nothing but a safety harness around your body. The swing can handle 3 people at a time and swings them from a height of 88 meters before dangling them right over the cliff. And while this attraction definitely seems like a massive risk to human life, it's actually quite safe. What basically means is that it's the only experience that's terrifying. According to the engineers who built it, the swing can withstand winds of more than 160 km/h and won't collapse, even if hit by a magnitude 10 earthquake. Sure, all that sounds pretty good, but I'm still not pretty sure whether I'd want to take the risk. Number 11. Flying Kisses Ride, China. Unfortunately, the tale of terrifying rides in China doesn't end with the tallest swing in the world. This is another attraction that visitors flock to every year for God knows what reason. It also sits at the edge of a cliff on top of the mountain, but unlike the swing, visitors are actually in one of 2 observation decks held in the hands of 2 giant figures. Along with being one of the most terrifying attractions, it was also voted the ugliest building in China back in 2020. But why is it called the Flying Kisses Ride? Well, the 2 giant figures are initially facing away from each other, and as the ride starts, they both start to circle, also moving the observation decks, ultimately ending up in a position facing each other and kissing. Plus, since people are free to roam the observation deck, I'm not too sure about its safety because at that height, fast winds could easily lead to some serious trouble. And there's also a point during the ride when both decks are being held at the edge of, so without any safety harnesses or precautions, this might just be a ride you want to avoid if you were looking for some adventure. Anyway, At least now you know the ugliest, strangest, and perhaps one of the most terrifying tourist destinations in the world. Number 12. Lake Natron, Tanzania. While this attraction has to be the most breathtakingly beautiful in the video, it's also one of the most. Lake Natron, also known as Tanzania's Red Lake, is something straight out of a horror movie. Forget about swimming in this lake. Animals can't even drink the water because it'll fry their insides. Red Lake is poisonous as it contains a large amount of minerals that are the perfect breeding ground for bacteria that love eating the insides of living organisms. And trust me, you do not want to dip your feet in the Red Lake either because it's super hot with temperatures touching 60 degrees Fahrenheit in the summers. Plus, if an animal unfortunately ends up drowning in the water, they'll actually be calcified, meaning the Red Lake will literally turn them into a zombie. Until now, I'm pretty sure none of you want to risk even getting close to this lake, but believe it or not, Lake Natron is actually part of a famous safari ride, receiving thousands of visitors each year. Thankfully, no unfortunate incidents have been reported as of yet, but even if you think this is an attraction you want on your bucket list, think again. The strong odor of gases coming from the lake's surface won't let you admire the scenery for too long. Number 13. Goliath, Six Flags, Great America, Illinois. Just the name alone suggests this is a terrifying ride, and it's not because it's a really tall or fast roller coaster. There's actually a different reason why this tourist attraction is one of the most dangerous in the world. Despite a major drawback, thousands of people continued to ride Goliath as it dropped them from a height of more than 300 feet at a mind-boggling speed of 90 miles per hour. Believe it or not, the Goliath had a capacity of more than 1,000 people per hour, and while all that seems impressive, here's why riding this bad boy was never a good idea. I would even call the insanity ride I discussed earlier in this video safer than this because, well, the Goliath was a wooden roller coaster. Yes, you heard that right. This roller coaster was built back in the 2000s, and had it not been taken down in 2022, it would have been among the tallest and fastest roller coasters of today. But what was the reason for taking it down? The wood. It had started to snap and would even make strange noises as visitors cruised at insane speeds on the worn-out rails. The fact that it managed to remain functional for that long without an accident is crazy. It was taken down and rebuilt using steel since that's much safer, but before 2022, this had to be one of the most terrifying tourist attractions in the world. Number 14. Madidi National Park, Bolivia. Around 7,000 tourists visit Madidi National Park annually, and if I had to guess, it's probably because it's one of the most biodiverse places in the world. There are 100s of different species of plants and organisms in the park, and pair that with the scenic views, it becomes a must-visit destination on any traveler's list. But how has it found its way into this video? Well, there's no doubt it's one of the most biodiverse places on the planet, but at the same time, it also happens to be the most hazardous. And no, crocodiles or wild animals aren't the danger here. What makes this place so terrifying is that there are more than 100 different plants that could potentially if you mistakenly touched one. And what can't will lead to an allergic reaction with severe burning, itching, dizziness, and even a visit to the ER. But poisonous plants aren't your only worry in the Madidi National Park. If you manage to keep away from the plants, a parasite might just crawl inside your bottoms and latch on without you even knowing. Just like the 100s of plants, the national park is also home to a plethora of poisonous parasites that could end up cutting your tour short. Number 15. Devil's Pool, Zambia. Why is this waterfall called the Devil's Pool? Well, the locals say that you're basically dangling with death as you stand near the edge of the drop, looking down at probable death. More than 500 million liters of water crash down over the 100-meter drop, while tourists hang off the cliff of the fall. Now, even though this seems like the worst idea ever, there is actually a natural barrier right before the fall, so tourists and daredevils can hold on to that as they experience the brutal force of the water flowing past them. But just one mistake could lead to a lot of trouble because there's very little chance of surviving if someone goes down with the water. It's not usually the case though, because contrary to how things look, it's actually quite safe, provided you don't tempt fate and get too close to the fall, because tragedies aren't new to this destination. More than 20 people have lost their lives after being swept in the water, ultimately drowning to death. Want my take on it? Stick to swimming pools and small ponds. Even if you're super careful and listen to everything your guide says, the current is so strong that even a minor slip is enough for the water to drag you away. And while a lot of people go to the falls to experience something out of this world, locals call it very foolish since it's not safe by any means. Number 16. Takabisha, Fuji-Q Highland Amusement Park, Japan. The world's tallest swing, or Nevada's Insanity, has got nothing on Japan's steepest roller coaster, Takabisha. Takabisha, or also known as Dodonpa, was the fastest accelerating roller coaster in the entire world before being shut down in 2021. The reason why it shut down is exactly why this ride has made it to the #1 spot in this video. Believe it or not, this ride was so fast that it could accelerate to a whopping 112 miles per hour in just 1.56 seconds. It even held the Guinness World Record for being the steepest roller coaster ever, with an angle of 121 degrees. The Fuji-Q Highland Amusement Park used to get visitors from all over the world as thrill seekers couldn't wait to see what Takabisha had in store for them. Unfortunately for the select few, all Takabisha had in store was pain and fractured bones. The roller coaster ride was only 2 minutes long, but it was so violent that 4 different passengers suffered fractures in their chest and ribs after being thrown around at such high speeds. The roller coaster had to be closed eventually for obvious reasons, but if you ask me, it was only a matter of time before something worse happened, since it pretty much catapulted visitors at insane speeds with repeated somersaults. So, have you ever been to one of these destinations before? Or did you scratch some off after watching this video? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more exciting stuff in the future.